Hey, welcome guys. Today we are going to be building our DOS Werk Panther. This is the late production, the Super Blitz, which is a Takom kit. It's been reboxed, maybe redone, I'm not sure. But I did time myself on this. So obviously you have the finished tank in front of you, at least mostly finished. The tracks are assembled, they're just off the kit. Tools are left off the kit. Uh, the website says you can do it in 3 hours and that they painted and weathered it in 4.5. I think it took me about 6 to build, uh, which I don't know. It's a super blitz because it's a Panther and there's a lot of road wheels and things that, if this was a normal kit with 1,000 parts, it would have taken a lot longer. But we'll go step by step all the way through, starting with the lower hull here, and kind of discuss where things were, where we might have gotten held up, and the good and the bad, that kind of that sort of thing. So a lot of the parts are obviously already molded onto the lower hull, so there really isn't a lot. There's like 4 pieces plus the wheels that we're going to glue on, and it's really just these pieces that are going to hold on the front sprockets that we need to get glued into place. There are nice indicator marks and everything, and the fit is pretty good. You have to hold those pieces like in place, but once you get them, there's no seams or anything like that. So that is really nice. The wheels do come with the piece that attaches them together. That being said, they still all have big seams running down the middle, and whether you care or not, that is something that I sanded all of them. It takes a little bit of time. It's why I didn't do this in quite the 3 hours that they said, but they can't really eliminate that, unfortunately. But we didn't have to glue multiple pieces together, so that was nice. The sprockets come in 2, and then the idler in 3. Good amount of detail there, nothing too crazy, and the fit is really nice there. The sprockets do have to be glued into place. They will not hold in position. You could use tack, something like that. The wheels actually really hold. The ones closest to the body will not fall off unless you pull them off. So, and same with the rear idler wheels too. They just snap into place and will hold there. So I have gone ahead, and as you can see here, I'm gonna glue all of the wheels on each side together so that they're one big blob, so that if we have to be able to take them on or off, we should be able to do so. I would like to be able to take them off to paint them. It's just, we'll see if we need to or not. It's not a big deal if we can't. There are side skirts on this kit, which we'll get to a little bit later with the tracks as to why that's good. So we'll probably be able to hide a lot of the paint job because I do plan on putting them on there. But as you can see, they just snap into place. We do have workable, or sorry, not workable. We have Lincoln length tracks. So my first idea was maybe I can, take the wheels off and build the tracks on them separately. But then I ran into the sprocket having to be glued into place. So I don't know. I don't exactly know why I didn't glue them to the body yet, but it is what it is. If we can move them, it'll be nice in the end. So once we have that side done, we're gonna get the other side set up the same exact way. I have those upside down right now. Hopefully I figure that out. And we have all of our many road wheels in place. Now on to the tracks. And now this is where, if I had any frustration with this kit, this is where it came from, was the Lincoln length tracks. There is no way for them to do any rubber band tracks for the Panther. The sag is too big in the front. If we had if we put the side skirts on, you don't see any of that sag. So maybe that's something they could have given us both options. Although the kit is it's a cheap kit, so we're not going to get multiple options for things. But that would have absolutely sped it up a little bit. Because if you've built Tamiya kits, this is really how you build Lincoln length tracks. You lay them all flat, you get them all glued, and then in one, sweep, you just wrap them around. The glue on these tracks was setting up very, very quickly. Within a couple minutes, it was very difficult to bend and to get all the tracks to bend evenly around the sprockets and idlers. So I had to build them in really small sections, like maybe 2 or 3 pieces glued, and then wrap it, get that general shape, let it hold, and then, kind of keep going from there. So they fit pretty tight together. Some of the tracks fit very well together, and then other ones don't want to fit together at all. I ended up keeping the tracks in 2 separate pieces per side, so 4 total, which might be very interesting later on when I have to go glue them after I've painted them, and probably end up ruining a lot of the paint job. Hopefully not, but it'll be an interesting experience. The one nice thing, again with the side skirts, is that if you want to leave the tracks in multiple pieces and glue them together where the side skirts are, that will hide a lot of maybe some ugly gluing that we might have to do with super glue or something like that. So I've always planned on putting the side skirts on. I like the look of it, but maybe that'll be a benefit for us later on as well. So just something to keep in mind with the tracks. They're not terrible by any means. They're not great. The pre-sag and everything that's built in is great. The sag, once you see me finish here, is really, really good. They just take a little bit more cleanup and working than I guess I expected in a kit that, they're bragging about how quickly it can get put together. At this point, I did time myself, as I think I said earlier, and at this point I was at like the 3-hour mark once I got done with the tracks. And I was kind of thinking, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this in the 3 hours they said, and that they could paint and weather it in 4.5, which seems very aggressively fast. But keep in mind, the kit is supposed to be all glued together, the tracks and wheels glued together. So maybe that's part of it. But anyways, that's enough with the tracks. We are moving on to the backside of the lower hull, where we have a couple pieces, kind of like indicator marks, not injector pin, but for where other pieces on another kit would have gone, that we have to remove. It's not really a big deal. One of them can be mostly taken off with your nippers, and then just a quick sand takes care of the other. Then we're going to put on these little braces where our exhaust is going to rest on. Once we have those in place, these pieces needed to be jammed in there. So I don't know, they wouldn't, obviously you see I dropped it, they wouldn't hold. And I couldn't push them in until I glued them and then use the glue to push them in. That seemed to work. So those pieces all very, very tight on the back there. But once they're in place, they look really, they're perfect. So not too much else to say on those, but give it a little bit of muscle and try not to break anything. The exhaust does have a pretty good seam in there. You'll see in a shot later on that I did have to fill the seam, at least on the inside. A quick sand took care of the seam on the outside, but at the top of it on the inside, there was a pretty noticeable gap, and luckily I was able to get some filler and take care of that. Then we have the jack, which was in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pieces. These were some of the areas where I felt like, for being a Super Blitz kit, they probably could have done it in less than 7 without really losing much detail, but I'm sure they just took it from another kit and used the same kind of engineering and just added it in here. So couple times where I felt like they could have maybe done a little bit more to make it a little bit more of a Super Blitz, rather than, spending 10-15 minutes on the jack waiting for things to dry and sanded and everything. But anyways, now we're going to put the armor on, and we have a couple different options here as to the pieces that we're going to put on that will hold the exhaust. Now, it doesn't say to do this, but I would recommend attaching those before you put the exhaust in, simply because you see the exhaust slots in there and it holds it in the right position. And it'll allow you to glue that to those pieces of armor as well. So we'll get our jack on there. Once that is on there, we're going to glue the exhaust into place, which has a little bit of wiggle room on the back. So make sure you check it on kind of at every angle and hold it in place for a second there. Make sure it's set up in the right spot because there is some play. Attaching this piece to the lower hull, the backside, takes some strength. It slots right in and kind of clicks in when you get it there. There's a little bit, as you can see, a little bit of a gap and things that we'll need to hold down and let the glue set up. But the fit overall, pretty good. Especially it's very good, once you get some of these finger pinches in there and let the glue dry. Once we have that, we're going to add in these boxes, which they don't really have any contact points with the backside of the tank. So best option, as I'm doing here, I think at least, is to glue them from the inside there. And those went on very, very nice. Then these just kind of pop into place. You can glue them if you want. I'm going to leave them as is, and they'll fall in a more, gravitational direction once we have the tank upright. Then there are these little pieces of armor. Looks like a little piece of sheet metal welded on to maybe hold those boxes in place. There aren't great indicator marks, but it looked like that's where it belonged. We then have our engine. If you want to use that, I'm not going to, but I'm gluing it in anyways. And we have some hinges for those hatches in the front. Now, this kit doesn't come with any figures, and there's no interior, but there are hinges, so you can't make it workable, but you could pose it in an open or closed position if you wanted to, if you got aftermarket figures. I'm going to glue mine in a shut position just because. I'm not going to display it with anything. I'm just building it to, have fun here. So, gonna get the grab handles and things put on. And as I do with all small parts, I haven't sanded these yet, and I won't sand them until actually today. I built the kit last night while I'm recording this today. I went through this morning and basically sanded all of the small parts in the kit, so let the glue dry, and I've always found that to be a really, really easy method. The machine gun can be made to be movable. You just need to make sure that you slot it in the right place. And if it's not, it won't move. If it is in the right place, it is movable. It's a little bit loose, but it's not that bad where it's just going to sag forward on you on purpose. We'll just have to be a little bit careful when painting it because it does move very, very easily. Once we have that, you don't need to put the engine in. You can if you want. You could pose this door open, I guess. It's not a very detailed engine. And again, there's no crew that comes with it, but you could get aftermarket, make it, in a diorama where they're working on the engine. But if you put this hatch, in the closed position like we are about to, it erases all of that engine that we glued in there. So that's up to you when you're building it, but you won't see any of that if you do make it shut. We are going to leave all of the tools, well, most of the tools off of this kit, as I do on really any model I build, simply because, we're going to paint them separately and attach them later. It makes it easier, I think, to paint, makes it a cleaner process in general. But these tools on the left-hand side that will have, the clamps and everything that are going to be the same body color as the tank, we're going to attach on there now, so when we do our 2 or 3 color camo, it doesn't look weird. We don't have to fix it later. Then we have our photo etch, the mesh screens that are going to go over the engine, the rear section here, and we're going to attach them using Ammo by MIG's Ultra glue for like clear parts and photo etch. This can be brushed on. This is a great, great product, and it actually dries pretty quick, and it dries clear. So within 2 or 3 minutes, you'll see it starts to dry, and it will hold pieces together, pretty much like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, somewhere in there, after you have glued them in, and you can just keep building. It's obviously way more forgiving than super glue because super glue sets up in like a second, and if you don't put the piece down right away, you know, it can be a disaster. So use that there. It's great for this type of scenario. And again, dries clear and can be cleaned up with water on your brush, so you won't ruin your brushes or anything. Then we have a lot more, not a lot more, but a decent amount of small pieces and little hooks and things that we're going to get attached on the upper hull here, as well as these are optional screens. You don't have to put them on, but they are optional for this one side of the tank. They go over the mesh grill, and I decided to put them on because I think it made it look a little bit interesting having them on one side and not on the other, and just adds a little bit more detail to a kit where, again, a lot of this detail is already molded on. Then we have our headlight, and this is a great detail because this comes molded on to a lot of kits, and honestly it always looks like a blob, but you'll see in a second here it has the wire running back into the tank from the headlight. It's a nice little detail. I would like to see that on other kits as well, instead of it just being molded on, because that is the piece that also holds the headlight. So they managed to get that detail into one piece, which is nice. Then we're going to work on the other side of the upper hull. We have a couple more tools and things to get in place. This little wood box here, and then the section where we're going to wrap our, we have actually 3 different tow cables in this kit, 2 bigger ones and 1 smaller one, and we're going to end up wrapping that around this piece right here. Now they do give us, it's very nice, it's like a jewelry wire. That's going to be our tow cables. You could still make your own, but these bend very easily, they don't kink. I think they're a little bit nicer than like a string you might get in a Tamiya kit, but we'll get those built up separately as well. Then just a couple more pieces on the top, and we're going to get the top half glued into the lower hull. Now, after our fire safety equipment, of course. Oh, and our side skirts, sorry, or the braces for them. These are a little bit warped. You'd have to go in, I'm going to go in one at a time and kind of work my way from the back to the front or the front to the back, depending on how you're looking at it, and just glue them in one by one. It was really the only way. They don't sit in there very well, but once you just give them 5 seconds to dry and set up, you can continue working on to the next one, and eventually they went in very nicely. You just have to make sure they line up with the front fenders, because that is a little bit wonky. But anyways, you see that big gap in the back of the upper hull? It's sort of a problem, but it's a very fixable problem. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue the front, and only the front, only the one piece that I'm gluing right now. And I'm going to let the kit set for 30 minutes to an hour, somewhere in there. And we're going to come back, and you're actually able to pinch the top, that back portion that has the big gap, with a good amount of force. You can pinch that and bring it into the upper hull, glue it, and hold it. I did have to sit there for like 5 to 10 minutes and hold it because it kept wanting with pressure to pry backwards, but we were able to get no real seam line, which is nice. Just with some good old-fashioned elbow grease. Then we'll get our commander hatch put in, and one of the cool features of this kit are the periscopes that come on a singular piece of sprue that we're going to get glued and we're going to let set up as we put some other small pieces on the turret. And then we're going to come back with our nippers and we're going to cut that piece of sprue off and then sand all of those periscopes, which is a really, really nice thing. I know not every tank has that same setup, but it's a really good way to add detail and to add it quick without having to handle, 6 or 7 tiny little parts and, sanding them and fumbling all over and everything. So that was a really, really cool detail that they added. Now it's at this point where the kit really starts to go together quickly, and you kind of get, okay, yeah, it's a Super Blitz kit, right? Once we start working on the turret, we are pretty close to the end here, but we're going to get the part for the gun mantlet built here. Now, you could make this workable. I think I put too much glue in there. Maybe you shouldn't even put glue at all. So it's not fully stuck. I can move it, but it's very hard to move. So maybe use a little bit more caution. It was getting late and I wanted to finish in one day. So I might have rushed that, gluing that a little bit, but it is what it is. This piece here, I would not recommend putting it on before attaching the front like I am. Luckily, I immediately realized that probably needed to be put on after I put on this next piece, which you'll see will kind of bend that upwards. So don't let that one set up. But once you have this in place, you can glue that piece on, or like I did, glue them in succession and everything's fine. I chose to go with the mantlet that has the bullet trap in it. I think it looks cooler. Let's get the little chin on it. It does have a big seam, but judging by a comment in my review of this kit, as well as photos I've seen online, I think that seam is fully accurate, and it was present on the metal on the real Panther. So that is why that is there, and it doesn't need to be cleaned up. Then we'll attach the bottom of the turret, which attaches no problems at all, and then attach the rear of the turret. Now you'll see there's kind of a odd looking fit, and I guess I just never looked at the back of a Panther's turret before, but that is how it's supposed to fit, that overhang there. It's the only way you could fit this plastic in there, but I had to stop for a second and look at some pictures because it was a little bit confusing to me. All right, just a couple more pieces to go, and they saved one of the most, or a couple of the most fiddly for last. This is like, I don't know exactly what it would be called, but it's the thing that would hold the gun in place while they're traveling. And then we have our muzzle brake. And the piece that holds the gun, the directions on it honestly are kind of terrible and doesn't tell you where to glue some of the parts. So use your best intuition, and you can figure it out because it won't fit to the other piece that fits it to the vehicle itself. On the muzzle brake as well, one of the pieces, B8, needs to go inside. You need to pretty much jam it inside of the muzzle and glue it in that way, and then you can glue that piece on the outside. Once we have that, we're going to use our Gorilla Super Glue to get our metal gun barrel in there and to attach the muzzle brake as well. Like I said earlier, super glue dries super quick, so dry fit those parts probably a couple times. Make sure you attach the muzzle brake in the directionally correct way, because within about 5 seconds you won't be able to make any adjustments to it. After that, it is really just the machine gun mount that we need to put on for our MG34, and it has the world's smallest piece that doesn't fit all that great on it, but use a little bit of glue, mash it into place, and we'll glue it to the turret, and there you are. So if you have made it this far, I would ask you to please like and subscribe to the channel. The next video we will be painting, and the video after that we'll be doing some weathering to this vehicle. Like I said, we're going to do like a 2 or 3 tone camouflage. Not exactly sure, although I pretty much have my 2 ideas I'm picking from that we'll do on this kit. So stay tuned for those, as well as many other model building videos, reviews, painting, whatever that we'll do in the meantime. But this was a very enjoyable kit. I would say it is very much worth its $24.99 price tag. If you are going to compare it to, some of the newer kits of today, some of the top kits out there on the market, it's not quite there. It definitely shows, I'm not actually sure when the Takom version of this kit came out, but it shows a little bit of age in terms of the link and length tracks now are a lot better, fit a lot better. These are a little bit sloppy in places and are honestly pretty frustrating. You can see a little gap in the back of the tracks there. That was the best I could do, that I felt like doing. But there is a lot of nice detail in some places on this kit. The tools, for example, have the small holes drilled out, so you do have the correct detail there. The headlight gives you some good detail. It's just, there are a couple small pieces on this kit that I kind of wonder why they needed to be like that. And the only explanation I have is that they took the engineering from other kits and used it on this one. So when they say Super Blitz, it's Super Blitz in term, the perspective is coming from Takom kits, right? That might have close to 1,000 parts. It's still more parts than a Tamiya kit. I've built Tamiya kits quicker than this and with more ease than this. So keep that in mind if this is a kit that's interesting to you. But with all that being said, it was overall a fun build once I got done with the tracks. And I am very, very happy with it and looking forward to the next steps with it. So I will say thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you watching. And I'll leave you with the kit for a couple more seconds here, and we'll see you on the next video.